Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the Economy and Resources Committee. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded and will be made available for viewing through the Council's website. Remote participants, please note that the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you are not addressing the meeting. Right, speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. If you're in the hall, you can do this on your iPhone or iPad, although I will keep an eye on the floor as well. Please don't repeat contributions that have already been made by other participants. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be taken under a roll call, and no material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended as part of the discussion. If any member has to leave the meeting, please either write leave in the Teams chat for that period or leave the actual Teams meeting so we can monitor whether the meeting is quoried. All members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Please focus contributions on areas where clarification is required or to propose an alternative to a recommendation. We have several reports today which we are looking to consider, and I anticipate we will deal with the business in our usual efficient manner. However, before we proceed onto the agenda, I want to acknowledge the exciting and welcome news of the award of funding for some of our local key projects from both the Scottish and UK governments in this last week. Members will be aware that the UK Government awarded £17.7 million for our Levelling Up Fund bid for the Dumfries and Galloway constituency, enabling us to support 3 distinct projects. We will continue to work with the Annan Harbour project to support the regeneration plans and work with them to seek alternative funding routes. And we have also been successful in securing £2.6 million for the Lockerbie Old School Wellbeing and Enterprise Centre from the Scottish Government as part of Regeneration Capital Grant funding. Certainly my thanks go to all the team for their hard work in bringing forward these projects, and obviously acknowledging the George Hotel and the Rocks and Wheels and our third project, which is, if I can be reminded, the Water Sports Centre, of course, in Stranraer. So these are exciting projects that we look forward to coming to fruition. Members will also be aware of the correspondence that we have received from the Chair and Vice Chair of Third Sector Dumfries and Galloway, dated the 20th of January, in regards to the Community-Led Local Development Fund, on which we received an update at our September meeting. On behalf of the committee, I have today issued a reply to which all members of the ENR committee have been copied, and I will be seeking to arrange a meeting along with the Vice Chair with the Third Sector D&G to discuss this matter. I will ask officers to bring an update report on this to our next meeting, and in addition, I propose to write to the Cabinet Secretary, Mary Goujon, MSP, to continue to lobby in regards to financial flexibilities given the highly challenging timescales imposed. I would ask that this be noted as an action point for today. Thank you. So, moving on to item 1 is our... Oh, excuse me, we've got hands up just now, so let me just check my... We have got Councillor Scobie, first of all.
Yeah, Chair, just to echo your remarks made in terms of the Levelling Up Fund and the other funds where we've been successful. And it's been tremendous effort on the part of our council officials, employees, just to secure this fund, and particularly around the Levelling Up Fund of 17.7 million, as you said, with I think 13.4. 13.43, whatever it is, coming to Stranraer, very much needed funding, particularly for the George Hotel that we have suffered for many, many, many years in its derelict state, and it's been just a blight on the whole community. So this gives us an opportunity now to move forward with a really exciting project in terms of the leisure and culture centre there's been mixed response, but I hope that people will take to it, and it'll be a tremendous asset for the town of Stranraer, similarly with the waterfront, and again, all success for the Dalbeattie project. Commiserations for Annan, but I'm sure we can work through that as well. So just well done to everybody in all their efforts in securing that funding.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie, for those words. Councillor Ingalls, I've got you next, please.
Yeah, apologies, Kate. Good morning. Sorry, I was on the phone during the preliminaries there. It was just to say, was Councillor Carruthers noted as an apology? He won't be available for about an hour and a half or so. He wanted me to put in his apologies.
Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. I think if there's nobody else at this point, we'll move on to the actual item or to our agenda. And the first one is tendering an apology, so we'll note those apologies under item 1. Yeah, I'll pass over to Claire. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. We've got one apology being from Councillor Ian Carruthers, one member not currently present being from Councillor Malcolm Johnston, and we currently have 9 members on Teams, being Councillors Tukey Campbell, John Dennerley, Andy Ferguson, Andrew Giusti, Ivor Hislop, David Ingalls, Andy McFarlane, Richard Marsh and Billy Scobie. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And I approve of members' remote participation. So item 2 is declarations of interest. Any members wish to make? Councillor Brodie.
Item 14, Economic Development Capital Programme CLARF funding. A member of Annan Harbour Action Group, and I declare an interest, but interest is not sufficient enough to me leave the room. And thank you once again for the assurance that you will take forward the harbour project, which wasn't successful in the Levelling Up Fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. I also have myself want to just note for the minutes under item 6, in my national role as Consular Resources spokesperson, I have a role within the Local Government Digital Office. However, that doesn't preclude me from taking part of the debate today. And also within item 9, through my role as chair of this committee, I'm also the chair of the Local Employability Partnership. But again, that's, I don't believe, a reason for me not to take part in the debate today. Chair. Yes, Vice Chair.
Yeah, it was just to say, obviously disappointed in the unsuccessful bid to level up funding for Annan Harbour. But there is another round, so there is the potential for that still to be funded within that. So although it's disappointing this time round, there is still an opportunity to get the funding from Levelling Up.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. And on the same point, I think it would be very helpful if we could maybe get a reflection as to why some of the bids maybe weren't successful and how they could be improved. Particularly, I have an interest in the unfortunately unsuccessful regional transport bid, which, obviously that's the type of thing that could benefit the whole region. So it'd be good to see if there's a good way to take that forward in another round, for example. Thank you.
Thank you. Lorna, do you want to come back?
Just to confirm in terms of the outcome from the Levelling Up bids, UK Government have promised us feedback on all bids, including the successful and unsuccessful, but haven't prioritised that at the moment, obviously dealing with the award of the bids at the moment. So we await that, and we'll bring that back and share that with members and go through that. They've also indicated that there is likely to be another round of Levelling Up funding. Haven't given any timescales for that, but that's certainly something that we could look towards in terms of the unsuccessful bids and developing them further and seeing what the criteria is for the new round.
Thank you. So we'll move on to item 3, which is the minute of the previous meeting of the 15th of November. And can we note the minute of the meeting? Are members happy to note? Thank you. So moving on to item 4, this is the Strategic Housing Investment Plan. And this report provides members with an update on the plans for the next convention of the South of Scotland focused on housing and economy. of which will be held at the end of February. We're also asked to agree to add new projects to the Strategic Housing Plan, and Jamie Little is here to assist members if they have any questions. So I shall open it up to member debate. Councillor Scobie.
Thank you, Chair. Again, welcome this report, particularly the 4 new projects as laid out in the report for the Mayor's College Road, Braid Drive and the Meadow Park in Kirkcudbright. It's really more focusing on the convention of the South of Scotland Housing Summit and relating that back to the motion that we passed in the chamber some months ago. I think it might have been even as much as 6 months ago, and that was on the shortage of homeless accommodation, and I think it might be even getting worse, and maybe Jamie can give us some indication to that, particularly in Stranraer, in terms of anyone presents as homeless, that there is almost nil availability of accommodation, and that's small and large. But my concern was to the 3, 4, 5, 6 bedroom properties, and it's really just to ask the committee and yourself to come forward with a report in terms in regard to that motion, and to look at how we can set direction on the ship on the Strategic Housing Improvement Plan to be working with our registered social landlords as partners, so that we get the right mix in terms of what the needs are and the availability. So it's to look for a report in the near future in terms of that whole issue of homelessness, types of accommodation, so that they can move on to secure permanent accommodation and suitable tenure. So it's again asking for that report to come forward in the near future.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Jamie, are you able to come back on some of those points, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Scobie. In terms of the pressures on the homelessness service at the moment, I know that they are regularly reporting that through the Communities Committee. They are facing extreme pressures, and there is unprecedented demand for affordable housing at the moment. That's not just on the homelessness service, it also impacts on the Ukrainian resettlement scheme. The Homeless Department are working very closely as a strategic housing with our registered social landlord partners to try and affect as much of the supply as possible, and ensure that accommodation can be provided for homeless people as they present. The current amount of people in temporary accommodation is at higher levels than has been experienced over a number of years. But I can certainly assure the members that there is a lot of work and partnership work going on with our registered social landlords to try and manage that. In terms of the needs and types and availability of particular stock, we're now unfortunately in a position in Dumfries and Galloway where there's pressure right across the region for all types of affordable properties. However, we engage regularly again with our registered social landlord partners around the Strategic Housing Investment Plan. I myself meet monthly with the homelessness and housing options management team to discuss particular pressures they're facing. And we also have a procedure in place where we will look to identify particular opportunities for development of bespoke housing to meet the needs of people who are currently within the homelessness service. So there is significant work going on, but there is also significant pressure right across both those services. So work is underway and is moving forward effectively. But as I mentioned, there are significant challenges, including with the development of all homes, which has been reported to this committee in the past.
Thank you, Jamie. I see, Willie, you got your hand back up. So did you want to come back on this?
I kind of put in record my thanks to Jamie and Joe Weir and our team in terms of the homeless, because they do an exceptional amount of work and recognising the pressure, the unprecedented pressure that Jamie has outlined to And it's trying to find that balance with our RSL partners and recognising the work that Jamie's just outlined there in terms of working with them. And it's just a report so that we are getting the committees aware of, notwithstanding that Jamie meets on a monthly basis with the RSLs. And again, as was indicated in the report here, that there are 4 areas where there's housing going on and there's others. I know in Lawkins, for instance, that there's 16 houses going there. And it's just so that we as a committee know exactly what's going on and how we could perhaps shape it, because it has been said in the independent group that in rural areas, building flats isn't always the correct mix of accommodation, where it's just not suitable. So it's getting that balance right, and for committee to know that it's moving forward. So again, I would hope we can get an early report just on what Jamie's outlined.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. I've got Councillor Dookie Campbell coming in next, please.
Thank you, Chair, and apologies if I burst into a cough. Suffering a wee bit from a virus at the moment. I've got a specific point to ask Jamie about, but just in terms of what Willie Scobie was saying there. I would also like to congratulate the housing options and homeless team who had reason to contact over the weekend, and the response was fantastic in relation to some notices to quit in my ward. The substantive question, Jamie, is the inclusion in the SHIP of the 62 units for the MERS. Really welcome, and I know we've talked about housing in one ward before, and it's very much needed, but there was a report in the Galloway News last week asking legitimate questions, which I imagine you'll have been asked about many times previously, about what would the impact be on what is a fairly large development for Kirkcudbright on the local schools and doctors' surgeries, local amenities, etc. And I really want the community to get behind this, but how does that process actually work? When do we look at these sort of knock-on factors that are interlinked with any proposed housing development? Thank you.
Jamie?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Campbell. In terms of the impact on local services, obviously the provision of 62 affordable homes within the Kirkcudbright settlement, we anticipate certainly that's going to have a positive impact on the town as a whole, and also predominantly on the people who will be able to live in them. It does obviously support people to meet their education needs, improved in terms of space where they can carry out homework. And also the positive impacts these high quality homes. As you know, Lawburn Housing developed to passive house standards, so the positive impacts that will have on people's health and well-being. In terms of the impact on local services, we have previously conducted reviews on the actual impact of developments at completion in terms of things like the school roll, and most recently a project in Gretna where 90 units were built on the former Halcrow Stadium. A review of the people who were allocated those properties showed that predominantly they were either coming from within the school catchment area and the local GP surgery already, or those moving in were going to have a minimal or low impact on the school. It resulted in a handful of new students at the local primary within Gretna. So without knowing exactly how many people or where they're going to come from at this time, we obviously do take that into cognizance in terms of what the long-term impact will be, but certainly see that it's a positive for the town of Kirkcudbright.
Thank you, Jamie. Does that answer your question, Councillor Campbell?
It does, Katie. Thanks very much, Jamie. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks. I've got Councillor Dorward next, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Jamie, for the report. Appreciate it. The question referring to part 3.1.8, the RPA allocated to the region, which is 82.352 million, and then 3.1.9, these sums are further supplemented by Development Partners Own Finance. And from that, in terms of RSLs, I take that they are the development partners, Jamie. I'm just wanting clarification on that. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Dorwood. In terms of development partners, yes, predominantly registered social landlords, but we do also work with building craftsmen in terms of delivery of partnerships. Support for regeneration. They're a private contractor rather than a registered social landlord.
Part one of the question, Chair. Thanks, Jamie. Just again, a question on that. You're saying own finance will enable investment of a significantly greater sum. In terms of the rent freezes announced by Scottish Government in December last year, which are going on till March this year, is there any feedback from RSLs in terms of how that may affect their financing of these projects? Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Dorwood. Jamie, can you come in on that one?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Dorwood. In terms of the rent freeze, obviously the recent announcement that will not be rolled over into the new financial year will allow the registered social landlords to carry out proper rent to increase consultations with their tenants and certainly discuss what the impact of different levels of rent increase will have across all services. So in terms of the new build, as you're obviously referring to, it's anticipated now that the impact will be minimal in terms of future delivery. There were obviously concerns about the impact when it was unknown in terms of what would be happening in the new financial year. The challenges around the development of new affordable homes is very complex, and that was one of the additional measures that certainly gave the registered social landlord sector concern, both locally and nationally. And we certainly see that there are a number of challenges to overcome, and I think it'd be reasonable to say that registered social landlords are relieved in terms of their development programmes that the rent freeze is not continuing into the new financial year.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm just conscious on the chat that there's a comment that there's a lot of feedback from the hall. Has that been resolved? Can everybody hear okay online? I'm not seeing anybody not be able to hear, so that's good. I've got Councillor Dennerley next, followed by Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. It's a bit of a legacy hand. The point was covered by Councillor Campbell, so really appreciate the opportunity to speak here, just in regards to that report and to encourage more younger families to get into the area to be able to get into this kind of more affordable housing, because we are also in the aim of a net zero. And we want to continue with healthy young communities being built and building on that. So yes, I agree with the points that have been made. A lot of towns and villages as well are getting smaller in size because they seem to be getting a bit more expensive to live in. So these regenerational developments that we're seeing, I'm pleased to see, and it's good for the local community as a whole, and good for the economy in our area, of course. So I fully support this in order to balance things out in the long term. And of course, looking at it from that eco perspective, it is all about continuing to go down that road and developing these things, but in the right ways, as well as local facilities such as schools and so on. But again, focusing on the economic and environmental impacts that would have.
Thank you, Councillor Dennerley. Those comments are noted and welcomed contributions, so thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. Morning, Jamie. 3.3.3, the first block there, the second one down is College Road, Dumfries. Can you confirm, is that the extension of is this phase 2 of the very high quality houses that were put in there a couple of years ago, or is it the other piece of land that Lower Burn were interested in buying in Sandside? There's a bit of land where they've got 3 houses, then another bit in the back of that. So just so we're absolutely sure which part of the ward that is actually refers to.
Jamie, are you able to provide that clarification, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Ferguson. So the piece of land that this is referring to is just behind those properties you mentioned before that were developed by Lawburn on Forsyth Street, between that development and the new development. So it's not what's referred to as College Mains Phase 2 in the Strategic Housing Investment Plan. This is an infill site that will extend the boundary to meet the new development that's already been provided by the Lawburn Housing Association.
Thanks very much, Jamie. That's perfect. Yeah.
Thank you both. And finally, I've got Councillor Archie Dryburgh coming in.
Thanks, Chair. And it's always good to hear that some of my community's departments are getting some good feedback from councillors, and then with your permission, I'll write to them thanking them on behalf of the committee for what they did, especially for Councillor Campbell there at the weekend. Chair, just on that particular point that Andy made, it says about the Adult Health and Social Care Partnership for people with complex needs. And I know there's been a bit of work done with the NHS, Jamie, on supporting the RSLs doing that. Is that the case here as well, where the NHS have been involved, the IGB have been involved, the Health Board has been involved in dealing with putting appropriate buildings in place for these people?
Jamie?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Dryburgh. Yes, that is the case. We've been working very closely between the 3 organisations, Lawburn House Association, the Adult Health and Social Care Partnership and Dumfries and Galloway Council, to deliver a project that met the needs that have been identified through a number of different strands, but particularly the recent learning disability strategy that's been developed by the Adult Health and Social Care Partnership. The anticipation is that this project here will provide very high quality homes for people with those additional vulnerabilities. There has been a lot of work gone into the identification of a suitable site. Many of you will be aware of the challenges around recruiting appropriate staff to work in locations like this. So that's been taken into consideration. The outlook of the site, its ability to be close to local provision of facilities. So this project has been the result of a significant period of time and joined up working between those 3 organisations. So we are very keen to see this one come forward, and hence it's been recommended to members for inclusion.
Thanks, Jamie. I've got Councillor Marshall looking to come in as well, please.
Yeah, just on the same point, really just a question for Jamie. I think this development here by Lawburn, is it similar to the one that went through the ship at Annan at Station Road from Lawburn? I think it looks like a similar project. And also the second point is just on Willie's comment. I think there's potential to look at the homeless situation, discuss that with the RSL's strategic housing partnership as well. It would be good to have that debate there. So it's maybe something that could be factored into the agenda for the next meeting of that. I'm sure maybe we actually have already flagged that up, Jamie, but just to confirm that.
Thank you. Jamie, can you come back on that, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, Vice Chair. In terms of the project developed in Station Yard in Annan, yes, it's very similar in terms of model. The construction here will be slightly different given the setting. This is more likely to be individual property, but effectively the delivery model is very similar, and it's certainly intended to help support both the adult health and social, but more importantly the residents to live as independent a life as possible. And in terms of the Strategic Housing Forum, yes, we're fully intending at the next event to discuss the pressures on the homelessness service, and that's earmarked on the agenda for the next event.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands either in the room or online. So if members are content, we'll move to the recommendations, which is 2.1 to note the update and 2.2 to agree the inclusion of the new projects. Are members happy to note and agree? Yes, thank you. Now, moving on to item 5, this is the Energy Company Obligation Report, and our agreement is sought to a revised statement of intent under the Local Authority Flex Scheme. This will allow energy efficiency measures to be installed to privately owned homes to reduce fuel poverty and carbon emissions. And Jamie is here to answer questions on this report as well. So again, I will open it up to members for debate. Councillor Dryburgh.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. And I agree that we need to get a bit of a move on with the digital strategy, particularly in respect to schools. Am I on the wrong one? I'm going ahead of myself.
We're on the energy company at the moment. I'll maybe come in and just...
Too much drinking at the weekend.
That's fine, Councillor. Just while I'm waiting to see if anybody else wishes to come in, which I'm not seeing at this point, I'll just maybe ask for some clarification myself. Obviously, we've got the reports in front of us with recommendations and the statement of intent. The recommendation is for Model 3 for a trial of 12 months. However, the statement of intent references up to March 2026. So can I just confirm with officers whether we're looking to do a 12-month trial, or are we looking to just agree item 3 up until March 2026?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and relieved I'm not having to answer questions on the digital strategy. In terms of the Eco4 Flex scheme, the recommendation within the statement of intent is for the period of the Eco4 obligation in terms of what's been set out by the UK government, which is up until March 2026. The 12-month part of the report refers to the delivery model we're looking at adopting within Dumfries and Galloway if members agree the report's recommendations. The reason for that 12-month review is that there's an element of the unknown in terms of the impact on resources and demand. It's anticipated that if members agree the report's recommendations, the statement of intent, which identifies the qualifying criteria for people to access the scheme, will be in place for that period of 4 years, or up until March 2026, which is slightly less than 4 years now. But that within that period, there will be a review of the actual delivery model that's been recommended in the report, which is a slightly different part from the qualifying criteria.
Thank you, Jamie, for that clarification. I've got Councillor Slater in the room looking to come in, please.
Thank you, Chair. As regarding these plans to go ahead, what's the situation with wood-burning stoves? Would that be, there's 1 million people now, I believe, in Britain use wood-burning stoves or similar. I just wonder if that would be into this equation, or I'm in the wrong agenda, maybe. Thank you.
Jamie, are you able to offer some clarification as to where solid fuel sits within this scheme?
So within this scheme, obviously the qualifying measures that can be delivered are listed within the report. And in terms of delivering energy efficiency measures into resolving fuel poverty, it's anticipated that the installation of new measures will certainly help to achieve that. I wouldn't be able to comment on exactly the point about the wood burning stoves on the basis I'm not sure if council is looking, would those be eligible for funding? To which the answer would be no. If it's in terms of upgrading energy efficiency measures, but people do have wood burning stoves at the moment, the qualifying criteria is based on the income and vulnerability of the households and their energy efficiency rating, rather than what the current heating system actually is.
Thank you, Jamie. I hope that offers a bit of clarification. Yes?
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dorward, I've got you next, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And again, Jamie, thank you for the report. Concerning the report itself, no issues with the recommendations, but page 42 in our papers, page 9 of the report, 4.6, limitations on local delivery. I find that interesting but not surprising. And the last paragraph there says it's likely therefore that the delivery model for eco measures in Dumfries and Galloway would be restricted to larger installers, typically the central belt based, operating on a wider geographical or national basis. However, there may be opportunity for local subcontracting, particularly for microgeneration measures. And I think, is this reflective in some ways of business models in Dumfries and Galloway, which tend to be majority of SMEs, and potentially is an issue for the region, which I know we are addressing as a council. We're not the only people who need to address this, but we are working on this as a council to increase spend locally. But this will, in essence, if this is the model that, if it's likely the delivery model that comes in, it means that spend locally will be decreased. And spend that will go to national companies as opposed to local companies, although there is some option for subcontracting. Yeah?
Jamie, are you able to come back on some of those points, please?
Yep. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Dodd. In terms of spend within the region, it's certainly not seeing that there's going to be a decrease. This is a benefit in terms of investment that can be leveraged in through this route. If anything, there is an impact in terms of increasing the availability of work for local contractors. The issue being, as is set out in the report, that there are a limited number of local suppliers or contractors that do meet the required standards for the delivery of eco measures. However, they are still able to either work through an agent or to work as subcontractors on work. Another benefit of this scheme is setting out an approach that we can look to take for almost 4 years, giving the local contractors an additional certainty around meeting those requirements around being PAS 2035 or PAS 2030 accredited, being on the Trustmark scheme. And certainly it's an area where we would like to encourage more SMEs from Dumfries and Galloway to be involved in these works going forward. So it's certainly not seen as a decrease in the amount of investment available, and that's been taken away and given to Central Belt organisations. It's recognising that at the moment the delivery models need to be looked at quite closely to maximise the ability for the region to retain those funds locally.
Thank you, Jamie. Do you want to come back and...
Slightly, Jamie and colleagues, it wasn't a criticism of the model, it's just an observation on the business model set up in Dumfries and Galloway. So thanks for that, Jamie.
Thank you. I don't see any other members looking to speak or come in. So if members are content, we will move to the recommendations. And that is to 1, note the report. 2, agree the recommendation of the approved installer list model, and agree to publish the revised statement of intent. Are members happy to note and agree? Thank you. Item 6 is the digital progress for Dumfries and Galloway, and this report provides elected members with an update on the delivery of the Council's digital strategy over the last 12 months and seeks our support for an implementation plan to support the ambitions and ensure that we secure change and efficiency in our digital technologies. I've got Mike Shepley, David Sawyer and Graham McAlorum who are here to assist members should they have any questions. And I'll maybe perhaps come to Councillor Driver, who was very keen to get in with his question. Thank you.
And on that basis, I shouldn't give Mike Shepley or Graham McAlorum a chance to read into the report and potentially have a good answer for us, but there you go. Mainly to do with digital schools and the situation at the moment. We had a meeting with the EIS yesterday, and there's underlying issues in the school thing about, making sure that we have the digital connectivity within schools, but not just within schools. When our young people are going home, especially in remote areas, and they have either homework or they couldn't get to school that day because of transport arrangements or something like that, the digital connectivity hasn't been the best, and it's going to be one of these things that take us in or bring us into the 21st century for learning children and all that. So I just want some reassurance that a lot of work is actually going on with the Education Department to ensure that all of our young people have the opportunity to access digital means to make sure that their work can be done.
Thank you, Councillor Dryburgh. I know this was brought up at the Joint Youth Council as well, but I'll maybe pass over to officers to respond. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Dryburgh. The work that we are undertaking with our education colleagues through digital appreciates that our children and young people already inhabit a digital world, and their personal and social and educational lives are increasingly intertwined with technology in various and rapidly changing forms. And increasingly high levels of digital competence are certainly required. In fact, some children will probably have a digital footprint before they're actually able to leave a physical footprint. Such will be the pace of change, and therefore the requirements and the pressing need for our digital strategy to reflect one of the themes around digital schools is never so more important than it is right now. So certainly we have representation on the digital board within education, and again through our implementation plan the priority projects are identified there as well, that will enable us to deliver on that work and hopefully meet that objective for you, Councillor.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. I've seen the digital schools, you know, the actual start-end dates, and they all seem to finish this year. Hopefully we'll be on track with that.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Dougie Campbell next, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just if I could change the focus. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback here. I'll plough on. Just change the focus in terms of the digital strategy onto the digital customer. And my specific point relates, I suppose, to recommendation 2.5 and 6 monthly reports. I think the point Archie made just now about the savings that we have to make and the transformation that's involved, and the fact that the digital world cuts across everything we do as a customer. Is there any way that we can build momentum, particularly from my perspective, in relation to how the public access services through our council website? Can we find some way of accelerating that, and that elected members can see tangible progress over this year and beyond? Because I think linked to our council plan, it's really important that we have a major development in this area as early as possible. So what I'm looking for, in effect, is reassurance that if we're not going to call for more frequent update reports, what can we do to make sure that elected members have a confidence that we are making tangible progress in terms of our digital offer? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Mike, can I pass to you, please?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Previously, we had in place a member officer working group with regard that was put together with regards to the development of the digital strategy, and I would welcome any conversations with elected members to revisit such a framework. Obviously, we have several reporting pathways from the digital board with regards to digital leadership and the development of the projects and the timelines associated to those. So I would welcome any future conversations or framework put in place to give that necessary assurance on a regular basis, and also to take the feedback from elected members with regards to ensuring that we fully understand the needs and expectations of all our customers, and in particular those that reside within our communities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. And before I just come back to you, Councillor Campbell, I think it is a really pertinent point, and certainly I'm quite happy to take that away as an action on this item agenda, that we go and look at finding the best model for that. But did you want to come back at all, Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, please, Katie. I'm conscious that officers are very busy, and I'm not minded to introduce a further sort of bureaucratic process that slows down in terms of time to actually make progress with this. But I think what you're suggesting is taking that for an action would be good, because I think this is really, really important, and elected members know it's important for our constituents, and it can contribute significantly, I think, to development and implementation of the council plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Dryber wanted to come in on the same point, and then I will come to Councillor Dennerley and then Councillor Scobie. Thank you.
Chair, I agree with Councillor Campbell. Our officers are pretty busy at the moment, doing quite a lot of things, but we used to do things like emails to elected members on updates on projects. Perhaps a bi-monthly email to elected members where we are on the digital strategy. We'd stop having another meeting with officers, but would give elected members the opportunity to understand where we are with this.
Thank you. I think if we take it as an action to come back, and then we'll progress that through. We have our business bureau that looks at as an action tracker, so we can monitor that and find the best way forward with that. Councillor Dennerley, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's a bit what Councillor has already said. I feel like there needs to be a bit more discussion with other people in the community, and I feel that the digital progress strategy is talking about Dumfries and Galloway website definitely needs updating. It needs a massive change. There needs to be more easier access, especially for signposting to different ways, different places in the website, so it's easier to find that information, because at the moment, I feel that the website is out of date and it is a bit old. So I'm just asking a question, do you think that will be updated compared to other councils and other websites? Are much more advanced and much more accessible, easier language, for example, British Sign Language, possibly some signposting with sign language videos, and easier at the moment. I've looked around and there's a lot of English, just deep English, very specific topic, but it's not very reader friendly. So I was just wondering if that would be something that we could sort out. It has been raised in the past, but nothing's really happened, but I do think it needs to be sorted out if possible.
Thank you, Councillor. I think many of these concerns have been previously raised about the website, etc. But I'll pass over to Mike, or I'll pass over to officers. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Yes, Councillor, it is one of our top priorities. You'll see in Appendix 2, there's a priority list of programmes. The first two projects in that programme will be our web update and our CRM update. So the CRM is the piece that handles the customer requests, and web obviously is the one that distributes information and so on. We're looking to bring in some specialist assistance to help us develop that website plan, and we already have some feedback from the digital inclusion plan that Third Sector developed, and it says something along the same lines that one of the barriers isn't necessarily the ability to connect, but the ability to understand. So that's something that we're actively looking at.
Thank you. Did you want to come back in at all, Councillor Dennerley?
No, thank you. But it's important to keep going on with the process. We can't delay any few more years. We're already behind, and it will reflect the rest of the community. We don't want other councils looking at us and judging us based on the website. So it is important to make sure that the progress carries on. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Scobie next, please.
Thanks, Chair. And my issues perhaps straddles both 6 and 7. Item 7, but talking in item 6, and many's been covered, Archie, in terms of education, and Graham can confirm I've raised this on numerous occasions at Education Committee, and it's really in terms of kids who have to do some home tuition for whatever reason, as Archie has outlined, tutorials, etc., but they can't access because they haven't got the strength. And I'm not speaking of anyone with any profoundness on it, but low megabytes and so forth and so on. And my concern is to our priority in terms of rolling out broadband. When Dougie refers to digital customers, we have businesses in rural and remote areas that are unable to access the computers, the digital world, and their businesses suffer as a result. And my question is really asking, and it maybe will be covered in what you're saying, Chair, in terms of an action in looking at this and coming back to the committee, but it's the whole rollout of broadband in Dumfries and Galloway, particularly to remote and rural areas.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. I'll bring in either Graham or Mike to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Absolutely, we agree that within this turbulent world there's cause for resilience and sustainability within communities and businesses and council buildings as well. We have been networking with Scottish Government who equally have a pressing need around connectivity across the whole of Scotland, and that work and those discussions continue. Currently we are supported by partners with regards to the procurement of new broadband contract. And again, we have ensured that the question around connectivity is answered within that procurement process, and absolutely we can commit to bringing further updates around that work, and also the work that sits within our strategy and implementation plan, and bring those updates and hopefully give further assurances to members around this particular issue that affects our region as much as it does any other within Scotland. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mike. I'll bring Lorna in as well, if I may, please.
Really just to kind of update members on the, the Scottish Government's R100 scheme, which is about extending broadband across all parts of Scotland. And there's been further investments both by this council in the past and by government to extend that. The government is now promoting voucher schemes to enable those remote rural businesses and places to access different technologies to support their access to higher speed broadband, and we're certainly happy to circulate information around that for members to share with constituents, and again we'll promote it. We have done through our social media channels, and we'll pick that up again to do that again. So there are opportunities for individuals out there, and we can provide members with a further update in terms of reach and extension of the R100 within the region.
Thank you, Lorna. I think, yeah, we'll take that as a separate action, that will be circulated following the meeting. Councillor Scobie, were you wanting to come back in at all?
Not really, Chair.
No.
But
Okay.
it does get down to, some of the issues. So, sorry, it's not just computers. Sometimes it can be as much as a telephone, and they're only getting 1 megabyte or whatever. So, yeah, good that what Lorna's saying, and we circulate what is happening and how we're improving this.
Thank you. Is it on the same point? I've got the Vice Chair looking to come in. No, I'll come in order in that case. So I've got Councillor Slater, then Thompson, and then I'll come to the Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Before Christmas there, I became aware that the computers in the libraries were continually breaking down. And it's been going on for some time, apparently. But after raising the issue, the main library in Dumfries was also down. So I think it was covering the whole of the region for some reason or other, but I believe now I've been told that this has been repaired. But the question is, why did it take so long, and it take an elected member to actually raise the question? And I have another question really about high-speed broadband. It's advertised widely on the television, but high-speed broadband is mainly just driven to the local distribution boxes from the telecom exchange, and after that it goes back to copper. I believe there is some parts of the country now that are getting fibre fitted all the way to the house, but that takes digging up pavements. There's a lot of work involved in that. So the question is, how do they get this high-speed broadband through the copper system, and it's not right connected to the house? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll maybe come to the question on libraries, and then in terms of the actual high speed, I don't know if that's incorporated as part of the R100, but further details of that will be circulated. But maybe in your point on the library system and our IT, can I pass over to Graham?
Yes, Chair. The PCs in the libraries are all under a programme of replacement at the moment. I think that should finish by the end of this month. So we have addressed that issue in the libraries. It was part of a rolling asset replacement programme that comes under the next item, the ICT capital programme. So they have all been replaced. Connectivity-wise, yes, there have been a number of supply issues from the providers, and as you rightly say, we understood that all those have been addressed.
Do you want to come back at all, Councillor?
Yeah, just about the connectivity in the libraries, that's probably the only point of call many people have, because not everybody's on the internet. And the library, that system in the library, it can be a godsend to them. It's important that that's actually working, and it's good to hear that it's going to be replaced or repaired. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Thompson next, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I was looking at I've got a couple of points actually. Just in terms of the recommendations, presumably at 2.5, we're talking at 3.10.2. It's maybe just a typo as opposed to 10.3.2. I welcome the fact that the website is one of the priorities going forward. I'm just conscious that the feedback that we've had from the sort of surveys at 3.11.3 on page 82, if we have to wait till May 2025 for the website, I understand there's quite a lot of things to take into account to get the right design and implement that properly with the right functionality. But I think a lot of the concerns are about the content and the method of communication and presentation, which you don't really need a website to change the words. You know, that's just the content. So I'm sort of thinking, is there things we can do now to improve the content and the messaging on the website so that people can find it in plain English and not council speak, so it says clearly what we do. You know, basically all the things that are listed there at 3.11. I don't think that takes a massive procurement exercise. It could just be the right staff able to update the website pages as and when required. So I'm just wondering if that's possible in the meantime. Similarly, when I looked at page 97. At first glance, I thought, oh, that's people's experience of trying to find a bit of information on the website, which is basically a complicated map with many steps. But obviously that's our digital programme over time. And I'm just sort of thinking, is there any way we can make a short-term fix so that people can access the information through the search on the website, which might be a technical thing, but it's quite common or ubiquitous on most websites now that you put in a keyword and you get the right results. And I'm just wondering if that's maybe technically possible just now while we wait for our procurement teams to sort out the rest. And finally, just on the appendices 1 and 2, there's a list of programmes or pieces of work that are either complete, under procurement, in consideration, ongoing, and I'm just wondering, there's some that have post-dated December 22 or are targeted for January 23, and it's just really to seek clarification that those pieces of work are actually complete, because it's not necessarily clear on those tables. And maybe that could feature as part of the update in terms of the implementation of the digital strategy, rather than going through each item here today. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. There's quite a few points on there, but certainly I would encourage members, if there's issues that you are seeing on the website, to feed that back. One example of that was our recruitment page, which was highlighted, and we've now got that updated and linked to My Job Scotland. So absolutely, it shouldn't be difficult to update if there's information that we can. But I'll pass over to Mike for the answers on the other points. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. If I may, could I pass the first question around the website over to my colleague David Sawyer. Thank you.
We can't actually hear you, David. I don't know if there's a problem with your mic. You're not on mute. Or your headphones, are they? Yep.
Is that better?
We can hear you now, thank you.
Great. Yeah, there are thousands of web pages on Dumgal, the corporate site, and the 19 subsites, and then obviously the 11 externally hosted sites that we have. I totally take your point. They need to be looked at from a plain English perspective, and the message to be communicated better. To do that, we need to audit the pages and then have the resource to rewrite the pages in conjunction with services. So yeah, certainly something we'd be looking at prioritizing, and we will do that as part of the plan. The second point on the search functionality, if it's okay, Councillor Thompson, I'll take that away and feed back to you on that. Appreciate there were other points. Have I answered your main ones there?
Through yourself, Chair. Yeah, thanks. I think it's really just to get that assurance that while elected members can feed back on a case-by-case basis where there's maybe issues with certain information on certain pages, and I appreciate it does take a resource to maybe audit the pages we've already got, but are we able to update those on the fly as we find the errors? Because maybe that's the piece of work we need to do while we wait for the next 2 years for the new website to be delivered. Because I think we've established in the report that hundreds of thousands of visitors see the website every year. That's constantly public facing. It's like an advertisement that never turns off. So every time people see it and it's wrong, do you know what I mean? There's a reputational issue there as well. So I think any effort we can make at the moment to continue to improve that would be good. And the search functionality, yeah, happy to take that offline. The other points, as I say, are part of the appendices, which is just not clear if they're complete or not yet. So that's maybe been picked up as a part of the action that the chairs suggested earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I'll just maybe turn back to Mike to see if he wants to comment on the actual action plan that we've got before us.
Thank you, Chair. Graham will be able to give you a response with regards to the issue you raised there on the implementation plan. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I think there are, as you say, quite a few items in that in the action plan. So perhaps it might be better taking it offline and going through them then. Thank you.
Thank you. If you're happy with that, we can add that in as part of the action of looking at how best to monitor this and go forward, and actually communicate that to members, staff and the public as well. But I'll bring in the Vice Chair, Councillor Marshall.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was just really an observation that, you know, a lot of the kind of member concerns that have been raised, particularly around the website and educational connectivity, etc., they kind of align with, if you look at the recommendation in 2.3, so obviously they are the priority projects, and if you look at 3.10, it's a digital customer and it's digital schools, and they're the top of the list of about 6. But I think there's just a frustration, but I think we have to understand why there's, you know, the amount of work that's involved in it, and you know the time scale. So more regular reporting, and that could be out with committee, will be helpful for members. But I think, you know, the priorities are aligned, and the two main things that we discussed today are the two kind of council priorities.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. So I don't see anybody else looking to come in at this point. So let's move to the recommendations. We're being asked to note 2.1, 2.3 and 2.4, and then agree 2.2 and 2.5. Are members happy to note and agree those? Thank you. I'm conscious of the time, but because we've got Graham here, who's also going to be speaking to the next report, we'll take item 7 and then we'll stop just for a short 10-minute comfort break if the committee is happy with that. Thank you. So item number 7 is the ICT Business Systems Asset Class Capital Programme, and this is a monitoring report, and it provides an update on the ICT business systematic class programme for 22-23. And as I say, we've got Graham still here to assist with any questions. So I will open it out to members if there's any questions on this one. Councillor Dryburgh.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, nothing wrong with the report. I'm just obviously the previous report has mentioned about the digital strategy and things like that. I'm just wanting some reassurance that this will not affect any of the funding in here.
Graham, can I pass it over to you, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The asset class is actually split into two. One part of it is the asset replacement, which is the likes of the broadband circuits and PCs and so on and so forth. So that remains the same. The second part of it is business solutions, and that money is used to support the digital implementation plan. So it's it varies year on year, depending on what asset replacement's needed.
Hopefully that offers you some reassurance. Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else looking to come in on this report. So if members are content, we will move to the recommendation, which is 2.1 to note and 2.2 to agree the project variances across the programme. Are members happy to note and agree? Thank you. So we are at 11:35. If we take a 10-minute comfort break, and that just gives everybody who's on screens a chance to have a short break. Thank you, and we'll be back in at 11:45. Thank you. Welcome back, members, to the committee. So we're on item number 8, and that's the Economy and Resources Revenue Budget Monitoring Report. And this provides members with an overview of performance against budget for the period ending 31st of December for Economy and Resources. Members will note that the reported underspending, which includes the projected overachievement of planning and building warrant fees. And I've got Tam Adler and Gillian Ross, who are here to assist members if there's any questions. So I shall open it up to members. I'm not seeing any indication of any questions at this point. So, I've got Andy McFarlane. Councillor McFarlane, would you like to come in, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I noted at 3.3 the overachievement of targeted income in planning. This is an area of concern. I get contacted by many constituents in relation to planning, and I know it's been dealt with elsewhere, but really just to put it on record that with the additional income, it really is important and significant that that's indicative of an increased use of planning, and that we really need to get sufficient staff to make sure we meet the demand that's in place. So really just a comment, thank you.
Thank you, and I think those comments are shared by members across the chamber. I don't know if anybody wants to come in response to that. I'll maybe bring in Lorna, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just obviously members are aware of the improvement planner in planning. And a core part of that is the agreed use of some of the reserve to recruit more planners, and the difficulty we have in that, and that there is a shortage of planning qualified staff across Scotland and indeed England. At this stage, I'm speaking with authorities in England. They have equally difficult challenges in recruitment. We have made some progress, and members will recall that we are bringing updates to this committee, and would expect to bring one in March to give you an update on our success and otherwise of recruitment and the position around the planning performance as well. And we've just had an update from government, an assessment from the Minister responsible for that, which we will be able to share with members in that report. So happy to keep members further advised and keep bringing reports back to members to give indications of the progress made and the challenges that we're still seeing with the sheer volume of planning applications through the system.
Thank you, and I look forward to getting that report in the March papers. Do you want to come back at all, Councillor McFarlane?
No, I'm just grateful for Lorna's response. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else indicating to come in, so if we're happy and content, we will move to the recommendations on this one, which is to note 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. Are members happy to note? Thank you. Item 9, this is the Employability Programme Delivery Update, and we're provided an update on the Council's participation in the UK Government's Kickstart Scheme and the Scottish Government's Young Persons Guarantee as part of economic recovery work. There is also information on the option of a further phase of provision to support employment in our region. I've got Lynn Burgess here, who's here to answer any questions. I've got Lynn online, so I'll open it out to members, and I've got Councillor Dryber first of all, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair, and you know, I'm happy with the recommendations in the report. I just wanted to thank Lynn for her quick response to an issue that I dealt with yesterday under the No One Left Behind scheme, and it was to do with HGV driving for Nithcree. So I'm really pleased just to put on public note my thanks to Lynn for her quick response.
Thank you. I think we will note those and pass back the thanks to Lynn and her team. I don't see any other members looking to come in or indicate to speaking online. I'll just give it a few seconds. Okay, in that case, let's move to the recommendations on this one, which we are asked to note in 2.1, note 2.2, and consider the option to recommend to full council in 2.3. Are members happy to note and consider that recommendation? Do we need to agree that? I think we're content to agree the recommendation. Yes, thank you all. Item 10, this is the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and this is the report by the Head of Economy and Development. And this report provides members with an update on the UK Shared Prosperity Fund for Dumfries and Galloway and seeks our agreement to proposals for delivery of the funding for 22-23. Steve Rogers is here, and I've also got Lynn also on the line, and we are there to assist any members. So I will open it up to questions. And again, I've got Councillor Archie-Driver coming in first, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. I mean, obviously these different grant schemes and that take a lot of time up for officers to actually put bids into, and obviously it takes me back to years before this council actually happened with competitive tendering, and there's a load of things that we've got to apply for, and it takes time for officers to apply for these particular funds. So there's 2 points to this bit of spiel here. First of all, I'd love to get to the point where we said to governments, both in Edinburgh and in the UK, that, look, if you want us to actually do something, give us the money and we'll put the things in place for Dumfries and Galloway, rather than having to spend a lot of time applying for these particular funds. And secondly, I mean, I know that you mentioned earlier on about what you're going to do with third sector Dumfries and Galloway, but could you just clarify that point so it's on public record again with regards to this UK Shared Prosperity Fund?
Thank you, Councillor Driver. So in terms of the comments that I made earlier about engaging with third sector D&G, just to clarify that we will be writing, but that's in regards to the community-led Vision Fund as opposed to UK Shared Prosperity. In terms of that engagement, it is in the report in 3.7. Let me just double check my notes. I believe 3.7, and it says, and I'll quote, outlined in 3.6, these grant schemes will be developed and delivered in partnership, including through third sector partners such as third sector D&G. So that just clarifies the position on record. But I'll maybe pass over to Steve to confirm the other points that you had raised there.
Thanks very much, Chair. Yeah, and in regard to the points that Councillor Driver has raised there, in terms of the next stages of developing the UK Shared Prosperity Fund arrangements, then we will be moving into the delivery phase, and it's absolutely our intention to engage with delivery partners who we will need to assist and support us to ensure that the outcomes intended and the interventions intended that were set out in the investment plan are actually delivered. So yes, we're very keen to engage with other delivery partners, including third sector D&G, who have got particular specialism and expertise to offer in this field. So we'll certainly be following that up, Chair.
Thank you. And it's remiss of me not to make comment about, in my role, I do sit on the thematic board with COSLA, and it is COSLA's position with all governments that we should be given allocation of funding and the autonomy to spend the funding as we see fit. But that's certainly a message that I can take back through the thematic board via COSLA and that national position for all local authorities. I've got Councillor Scobie online, and then I've also got, followed by Councillor Brodie, and then the Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's really just building on what Archie was saying in terms of give us the money, make the money available, and for the council to distribute, because there are a number of grant body sources that come on stream, and it's that tightness in terms of application turnaround and so forth that causes the most concern, particularly there in the communities with local groups, voluntary groups. My concern is really to 3.5, just on that, is the question of capacity. And I've spoken to Steve, I've spoken to Lorna on a number of issues that have been raised, and Steve has assured me I'll get replies to those questions that are asked. And it's really on the flexibility in how council delivers the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and I think we've got to be open and transparent in how we're doing, and that fingers are not pointed at the council in terms of how we are delivering on that Shared Prosperity Fund. So maybe if we could get some explanation on the rationale in terms of how we're dispersing of the funds. And I know Steve has just said that he wants to involve the third sector, and there is reference to that in terms of 3.7 that you referred to, Chair, in that we bring in the third sector and local organisations. And that it's really just the rationale. So two questions there. It's really around capacity and whether we've got capacity at times when these funds become available. Reference has been made as to the amount of work that's put into the Levelling Up Fund, and then there's going to be the delivery of that as well, so that we do have maximum capacity to respond, because, you know, the monies that are made available at these tight times in council from external sources, I think we've got to maximise as much as possible, so that local groups in the community can access this. So it's around capacity, open and transparency, and the rationale behind how we disperse. And you have mentioned, Chair, that you are going to have a meeting on the community-led local development fund. Again, the various questions that are being asked in terms of the tight turnaround as to when we received the monies to disperse, or to the timescale in that. If we are unable, that we do lobby the Scottish Government in terms of carryover. Number of questions there, Chair, if they could be addressed.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. I'll bring Stephen, please.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, there's a number of issues that Councillor Scobie has raised there. Capacity, if I can deal with that one first of all. Capacity is undoubtedly a challenge, and Councillor Dryber has already mentioned our ability to be able to react and respond to all the various opportunities that come along from, whether it's from UK Government or from Scottish Government, to react and respond to submit bids, but also to then follow through in terms of the actual delivery, the management, the coordination of these schemes, and do the returns that are necessary, all the stuff that kind of goes on behind the scenes to make sure that we are applying the proper governance processes and the proper audit arrangements for all of these schemes. So all of that also takes capacity, and it's something that we're having a good look at the moment, and I'm keen that we build more capacity to allow us to be quicker at responding to some of these opportunities. One of the issues is not just around the actual existence of some of the schemes, it's sometimes the timescales that are attached to them which require a kind of immediate reprioritization of work, and that can be the challenge. I think sometimes the lead-in times that we get for some of the submissions and some of the bids is extremely challenging, and then at the other end, at the tail end, the pressures are then on, once we get the outcomes of the bids, to actually make sure that they're delivered, and that's what I was alluding to in the previous response, Chair. And that's why, in terms of that rationale around delivery and applying flexibility, which the UK Government in their prospectus and guidance does permit flexibility in terms of how the schemes are delivered, through really a mix of procuring, commissioning, in-house delivery, and also grant schemes. And those different methods of delivery were outlined in our investment plan, and so they have been agreed and approved by UK Government, and will use existing partnerships and existing partnership arrangements as far as possible, again, to help to speed up that engagement process around delivery as we take forward all of the interventions that were identified and agreed as part of our submitted investment plan. hopefully, Chair, that covers the points that Councillor Scobie raised.
Thank you, Steve. I'm wondering if it's possible to maybe circulate that investment plan to all members, just in terms of transparency, so all members on the committee can actually be reminded of that. I don't know if that would be helpful for everyone on the committee, but I'll maybe just come back to yourself, Councillor Scobie, and I've got the Vice Chair looking to come in as well.
Yeah, it's recognising the difficulties that Steve just outlined in terms of capacity, how we respond and so forth. And it's also about taking the third sector with us, the local groups, in terms of their funding, and hence my reference to the community-led local development fund, which Chair, you are a meeting with the sector. It's so that we take them with us, and the rest there's open and transparency in many of the questions that they are now asking, and so that we can answer all those questions satisfactory or to their satisfaction in terms of how we deliver and how we respond to the many different sources of funding that becomes available to us. So it's really hinging on the meeting that you and the Vice Chair is going to have with the third sector to make sure that we are working in partnership and that we're taking them with us in terms of the paragraphs 3.5 to 3.7.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. So there's a meeting being offered. There's nothing arranged as yet, but we will certainly liaise with the committee as to any outcomes of meetings that are taking place. I'll just bring the Vice Chair in, if I may, just now. Thanks.
Yeah, it was just a general comment with regards to, no, I don't think any local authority wants to actually return back any funds, and we know sometimes that is due to short time scales by either the UK or Scottish Government. But I think, being in a position of potentially not being able to carry over funds, or etc., I think members, we need to be sure that there is formal processes in place, and we're happy that the council or anyone else has the capacity and resources to deliver that. So I'm just looking at 3.7. It's proposed, but really do members get to see, or should we get to see a formal process being put in place, so we're happy with that? Because the last thing I want is any fund for us to have to return balances because of a lack of resources or some other reason. And I do know that at times you do get this fund and there's a quick turnaround. But with this one, it's going to be with us for a couple of years, so we need to be sure that we have a robust process in place. So I don't know what is custom and practice, but rather than sending a note, I think we should have a look and see if the process is fit for purpose and ensures that we maximise all opportunities for external funding.
Thank you. I'll pass over to Steve, if I may. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So there is a process for the carry forward of funds within the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. So in paragraph 3.4, it outlines that we are required to submit what UK government refer to as a credible plan for the following year in terms of how the carried forward funds would be delivered and how they would achieve the interventions that were set out in the investment plan. And in developing that credible plan, we will need to engage with delivery partners to do exactly that, to make sure that it is credible and capable of being delivered. So that's dealt with as part of the financial year end processes. And we understand from UK government officials that, that they'll give us a deadline within which we have to submit our credible plan for the carry forward. So just to assure members that there is that mechanism in place, and we will be looking to make use of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's specifically on carryover. I think what I'm talking about is it's the actual model of delivery. So, we have a number of schemes, and there'll be a model of delivery for that the council develops. And I'm just wondering, I don't know as members we see all those. And it's maybe something that, because there is the danger of actually not spending all the funding if the carryover option is refused or for whatever reason, I do think it's something maybe that whether it comes to this committee or a relevant committee, because I know the Coastal Communities Fund as well. I don't know what the control is on that, but I think it's just to give members peace of mind that, you know, when we do get funding, that we can deliver it in the set timescales.
Steve, are you wanting to come back on those
Yeah,
points?
Chair, we're
Thank
happy
you.
to bring back further update reports, particularly around that process of the year end and the putting in place of those delivery models following today. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. And I think noting that word credible, it's quite, I don't know if it's helpful or not helpful, but certainly getting an update to members, even between meetings that can be sent, I think would be useful. I think there's certainly an appetite that members want to be keep as updated as possible. I've got Councillor Brodie next coming in.
Thanks, Chair. Just commend you and the Vice Chair for taking proactive steps to meet with the third sector in response to the letter they had. I think we can achieve a lot more as if we work in partnership together. So it's good that there. When we put in the bid for the Shared Prosperity Fund, part of our bid was the importance of the third sector fund and how we should be supporting them to deliver the priorities for communities. So I think that's got to be at the heart of this proposal. There was, in the letter from Norma Hart, there was a suggestion that we could put by 40% of the funding for the third sector. So should we think about how, if we do a put figure on that, or is there some mechanism that would ensure that we support the third sector as well? I know there's a capacity issues to deliver the programmes, but when you're considering that we're trying to bring in hundreds of thousands of pounds into the local economy or for the council to spend in third sector, and sometimes millions of pounds in these funds, I think we've got to find the capacity to do this, because we need to make sure that every pound available is used in Dumfries and Galloway, for example, the community-led vision fund. The timescales involved there are certainly very tight. The fund was announced in January, and the money's got to be applied for and spent by March. So we've got to see how we can be as timious as possible in how we deliver these things.
Thank you, Councillor Brodie. Certainly I'm in your hands as a committee. Just looking back to 3.7, it does state that the grant schemes will be developed and delivered in partnership. So at this point, I wouldn't be keen to put a figure on how a percentage as such. And it may be the case that we would be looking to put a greater than 40% funding or less. At this point, I wouldn't be comfortable with holding us to a figure at this point, but as I say, I'm in your hands as members on this one, but I don't know if officers want to come back. Steve, are you wanting to come back on some of the other points raised by Councillor Brodie?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's just really to assure that a number of the interventions that formed part of our investment plan will and do require working with and through the third sector. The key, I suppose, is what it says in paragraph 3.5 about flexibility and maintaining that flexibility in terms of delivery rather than perhaps following a straight rule in terms of a 40% allocation, because it could well be, particularly when you look at some of the interventions around communities and place and people and skills, and even some of the business interventions which speak specifically about support for social enterprises, that there could well be more than 40% that ends up being delivered through and with third sector partners.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Thompson, followed by Councillor Slater, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, a lot's been covered already. I think the fact that I suppose you announced that early action would be taken re the Community-Led Vision Fund, and I have to apologise, I've actually learned a bit about the different funds, because I think this was leader. In September we were told about the Community-Led, the CLLD, and I think we appointed a member to sit on the LAG as it was then. And then in January or December, just recently, it was announced that a community-led vision fund was being opened. So to those uninitiated, that was certainly a confusing read across, and certainly it's a very short timeline for those involved in being interested in applying for it. So, and that's not even in the paper today. So there's another thing there about we're not actually getting that information in front of us. This is actually proactive from the Chair and Vice Chair to actually respond to some inquiries that they've had from the likes of third sector about this very issue. So, because this is about the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which is a separate fund altogether. So already there's, you know, we can see that there's a lot of pressure on the team to sort of cope with all of this. And maybe that makes the case even stronger for greater working with the likes of third sector, D&G, because there might be a benefit to capacity if we take a more engaging approach. And maybe just given the timescales, we should be very open to that direct funding that's been talked about. Obviously setting the levels maybe not appropriate today because that's part of the discussions that are still to happen. But I think it does paint a picture of where we're at as a council in terms of having to respond to these short notice external funding streams. And we really need to, I suppose, improve how we work with the groups that we're involved with. But I know we always strive to do that, so that's good. Just in terms of where we go next, I suppose, I think the questions raised so far and the responses from officers are helpful. But I think there is something about the credible plan, which was touched on earlier. Nobody wants to lose money to the region. Given the capacity issues that we've heard about already, are we confident we can deliver a credible plan, and do we know what that looks like? Because somebody else saying what's credible and our interpretation of it might not be the same, and obviously we don't want to risk that, and is there a risk to that? So it's really just to get that assurance that we can cope with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Steve, are you able to offer that reassurance, please?
Yeah, just in that regard, we have already started a dialogue with UK government officials around that process. And we'll be guided by them in terms of the content of that credible plan, given that this is a brand new process for everybody involved. We're certainly looking to have that close engagement, and we'll certainly be in a position, I believe, to submit a robust and credible plan at the end of the financial year. Thanks,
Thank
Chair.
you. Councillor Thompson, did you want to come back?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think it was maybe just to get a sense of, I mean, how open are we to working more closely with our third sector and other bodies to get the money out the door, basically, because ultimately the fund is not necessarily for us, although there is arguably I think there's a component where 15% of one of the funds is potentially for admin for us, which we would probably struggle to spend before the end of March or whatever. So it's not clear from the details in these reports how we would do that, but are we as a team working as closely as possible with community groups to make sure the money gets to the people it's meant for, or the groups that it's meant for? Thank you.
I think maybe, again, I will offer a suggestion to the committee. I'm in your hands, but whether we can take that as an action, that we'll get an updated briefing of the timeline and how we're taking this forward. I don't know if that would be a suggestion, but I'll maybe bring Steve back in just for his comments and thoughts on that, or perhaps Lorna maybe wants to come in.
I think officers have been very clear about the conditions and the constraints that they've had in terms of capacity. And while these schemes come with some administrative headroom, the ability for us to recruit somebody suddenly to react to that has been really challenging. For instance, the other fund that's been mentioned, although there's no information in front of members, I'm very cautious about that. That information came from government with 1 year funding. So the ability for us to then recruit somebody for a very short period of time to do something. You're absolutely right, we should work with other partners, not just the third sector, but with business as well, and with other community organisations. So there's a whole range of interventions through the SPF that relate to business, that relate to third sector and community in place, that relate to employability and those that support employability schemes across third sector and business. So we are clear about our delivery is through other partners. We don't have the capacity in-house to deliver a lot of these schemes, and at no point did we suggest that. In fact, we were really clear, I think, when we brought the proposals around the SPF to Council in June last year, that this was about delivery through partners. How could we have improved? I think some of our communication through this, yes, but that has been largely driven by constraints, and we will seek to remedy that with all partners as we go into the delivery stages, as Steve's indicated with the team. And we are looking towards, given that the Scottish Government are indicating further funding for their programme now, the ability for us to allocate resources to that on a more permanent basis to support the kind of organisation and coordination of it. But it's just been a real challenge around the number of schemes. This is 2. We've also had the Community Renewal Fund, we've had other funds, we've had LOVE funding. There's been huge amounts of things, and we have been really constrained around that. But we'll seek as much as we possibly can to make sure that partners are engaged and partners are able to take on as much as they can in terms of delivery, and for that money to reach communities and businesses and people in the region.
Thank you. I hope that offers you and everybody in the committee some reassurances from the Director. Councillor Slater, I've got you next, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a question for Steve, really. It's a little bit thinking out of the box. I wonder what his thoughts would be in this. You talk about town centres and that are a bit run down at the moment. Would it be possible to set up a fund initially and then encourage business people and to possibly pay a small amount of money into this fund every month? So therefore, if they needed their gutters cleaned in the town centre in a building, they could call on that fund, and a designated contractor would do that work, and it would come out of the fund. But the money, I believe, would gradually build up over a period of time. And I think if you get more people into it, business people into it, I think that would possibly grow. And that's really the question for Steve. Would it be a viable proposition? And if it paid off, it would help bring our town back with building, just small building maintenance, really, where that fund could be used. And then as the money builds from businesses or whatever paying into it, it might just be £10 a month or something like that. But it's something that I would ask Steve maybe to give his opinion on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Slater. I don't know if this is maybe perhaps a discussion to have out with committee rather than attaching it to this particular fund, but I'll pass over to Steve to respond.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Very happy to have that further conversation with Councillor Slater about those ideas to get a bit more information. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else looking to come in. I do have one comment myself, which I was going to raise, and that is when we've spent a lot of time looking at the community side, but there is reference in here about the local businesses allocation, and there's reference to the fact that we could potentially have an extension to the Net Zero Transition Fund, which we agreed to at committee on the 15th of November. As a local authority who's committed to responding to the climate emergency, I would hope that this has been referenced as one mechanism that we could achieve the spend and impact quickly. Having just previously said I don't think it would be appropriate to earmark funds at this point, I wouldn't suggest that we do, but I would certainly ask officers to look at that as an appropriate way forward and potentially as a priority, and that would just be my request. But I'm not seeing anybody else, so let's move to the recommendations, and that is 1 to note 2.1 and to 2.2 approve the proposals for the delivery of the funding. Are members happy to note and approve those? Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just that we've got that assurance with the action points, as you've mentioned earlier, that members will be kept informed of the progress with the various meetings and the various funds. Thank you.
Yeah, we will follow that up following the committee, yes. Moving on to item 11, we are on to the local development plan, and this is the draft Wigton Conservation Area Character Appraisal and Management Plan, and this report seeks approval for this plan and supplementary guidance to be published for 6 weeks consultation. I've got Shona McCoy online, and I've also got Mizzy Marshall, who are here to assist members should they have any questions. Councillor Barretti.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at my notes, so bear with me. As a council, we are committed to finding ways to reduce damaging emissions that contribute to the climate emergency. Now, looking at this between pages 127 and 128, and looking at the paragraphs where alterations, attachments, new buildings, there is no mention of or provision for renewable energy equipment such as PV and solar thermal technology. Now, these are both pivotal solutions for commercial and domestic owners to reduce CO2 production, principally also reducing energy costs, contributions which impact substantially finances and applications of which are dependent on location and orientation. Is there any way that we can find a solution to implement our prime objective, which is in fact to reduce CO2 within the community, within our region, and to make it easier for people and commercial businesses to produce energy in their own location?
Thank you, Councillor Beretti. I'll pass over to officers. I'm not sure it's Shona or Mizzy who would like to come in this one.
I don't mind coming in. Thank you. Sorry, this feedback. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, we can't, the conservation area character appraisal unfortunately can't account for every single situation. I don't think it's intended to prevent application of any kind of renewable energy technology, as long as it is done in a manner that can be can still preserve some of the heritage value and character of the area and the individual building if it's listed. So I think there's a bit of a mix. There's a lot of compromise that needs to go ahead, but it is something that as a team we are looking at as well.
Thank you. Councillor, do you want to come back on that one?
Yeah, I like the idea that we can find a solution. I think the solution should satisfy all parties and try and keep the characters of the buildings and the communities, but I do realise it's not an easy question, but there is only going to be one way that energy is going, and it is going to be much more expensive. And one sure way of reducing energy reduction is by making sure that we do acknowledge that technologies are there to help in that process of reduction of energy costs and reduction of CO2.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, I think also just for noting for members, there is a workshop being put in diaries on the MPF4, and certainly when we're looking at these character appraisals, we've got a whole scheme of them coming through, and I suspect that this will be a question possibly raised at every single one of those. So if there's a way to take this issue forward, I think it would be possibly an option to explore that within that workshop. So I would encourage all members to come along. I have got Councillor Scobie looking to come in next, please.
Yeah, Chair, it's around the character appraisals that you just referred to there, and it's looking at pages 146 and 147, and it's the relaxation around planning regulation for the conservation areas. And I'm looking at some of these photos, and I'm just wondering, are those sash and case windows in the photos that are illustrated there on both pages, and even the dormer windows? I'm sure they would not be light for light from the time of build to that being a conservation area. And how flexible are we in the relaxation of these planning regulations in terms of the cost of living crisis, people trying to be energy efficient and so forth and so on, that's just been referred to, whether we're being realistic in terms of people wanting to upgrade their houses for different reasons? What is the flexibility and relaxation within the regulations?
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. I'll pass over to Mizzy on this one.
Yeah. I think the first point of reference would be again, it's more feedback. Okay, the first point of reference would be to look at the planning guidance for windows and doors in conservation areas, and in listed buildings, which is one of the documents that development management planners look at. Everybody's very, I mean, we're all very keen that a building continues to have a use and continues to be cherished by its owners, and they can do things in a manner that probably expensive than they think, to improve, the livability, to improve its energy and should improve its appearance in many cases as well, and its longevity. So I think we would like to encourage people to
I think we're
look
struggling
at
to
different,
hear
the
you.
first salesman who comes to the door, I think is like sort of, I'm not sure what's going on. I keep getting feedback.
Yeah,
but,
you're cutting in and out, so we're actually struggling to hear. I'm wondering maybe if Shauna's able to come in, because the connection doesn't seem to be good enough at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully you can hear myself. We've produced planning guidance on windows and doors in conservation areas and listed buildings, which sort of sets the framework that development management apply to applications that come in. So I think that that's kind of the first point of reference. And Mizzy was making the point as well that the ultimate aim is obviously for properties to be used and occupied. So I think there's a level of flexibility, but there's the recognition of the need to protect these listed buildings and the character of our conservation areas, because I think it's the small incremental changes that over time affect the actual character and appearance.
Thank you, Shauna. I don't know if you wish to come back on that one, Councillor Scobie.
I wait with interest just what the outcome of the appraisal is, Chair, but I would hope we are flexible and see what the outcome is.
Thank you. Councillor Slater, are you looking to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair. On page 127, it's good to see that trees in conservation have special protection, and also people have to give it 6 weeks in advance if they want to remove a tree. And I think that's good for the conversation area. I'll get it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that just a comment on that one? Yes. Perfect. I'm not seeing anybody else looking to come in at this point, so let's move to the recommendations, and that is 1, to agree the draft supplementary guidance, agree that it's issued for 6 weeks public consultation, and 3, to receive a report back to this committee. Are members happy to agree? Thank you. Item 12, we move on to the Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal, and we're asked to endorse the place plan for Kirkconnell and Kellerholme as part of the Borderlands Place programme requirements. The place plan has been developed with the people of Kirkconnell and Kellerholme and presents their priorities for the place to support sustainable, vibrant, welcoming and town-centred, with well-being at the heart of the plans. I've got Stuart McMillan here, who's here to answer and assist with any questions. So I shall open it up to members. I'm not seeing anybody indicating to come in. I guess my thanks would also go to the community who have clearly worked hard in bringing forward this place plan. It is ambitious. I'm really pleased to say it's well laid out. It's really good to see, and I would hope that other towns in the area, in the region, who will be bringing forward their own plans can look at the positives from this one and take that forward as they develop their own. But if no members are looking to come in at this point, I've got the Vice Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really just, commend the report. It's a good template for the other 4 places to use as well. And I think it's very encouraging, the response back from the Kirkconnell community, and particularly, the range of people that fed back. It's very encouraging that there was 2 sessions organised by Council Youth Services to engage with young people. So hopefully everyone in Kirkconnell, or most people in Kirkconnell, support this. I think the Council will support this, and it's really good look going forward. I think the big challenge will be getting the funding for some of this, but as I say, there's a good start with the Borderlands deal.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Beretti looking to come in, please, and then Councillor Dryburgh.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I know this project has been on the go for several years and before I got elected. So I'm quite happy to see this going forward. And hopefully, I know that most of my fellow colleagues who are likely to be involved will assist in the implication and application of this project. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Councillor Dryburgh, please.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, there's no to do with the report, but just the process in which people are going through. And I just wanted to put on record my thanks to Shelley Bell and Stuart Hamilton for taking the Gretna one forward. Hopefully this will be a template for actually moving them forward. And I think O'Connell and Kelholm were fortunate enough they already had a group in place that could take that actually forward. So just to say thanks to Shelley and Stuart.
Thank you, and it'd be remiss of me not to thank the team who were out in Wigton last week, also taking forward the place planning projects. So I'm not seeing anybody else. I've still got Councillor Scobie, your hand is still up. I'm just checking, is that a legacy hand or are you looking to come?
Just put it up, Chair, just put it up. Yeah, just to, maybe by way of information, the Stranraer one, there's a public session tonight. It clashes with another public meeting in the Down to do with doctors, but I would hope that the people get behind when they can see, or at least when we can see, just what work can be done in the Kirkconnell-Kelholm one, ambitious, and as I say, the challenge is to find the money. The George Hotel was a big feature in that place plan, as was the Head Start, and hopefully the people will endorse all the work that's going on in producing these place plans and give them some foresight into what can be for the future.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. I've got the Vice Chair looking to come in again.
Yeah, just one thing to note on this, because it's also item 13 is another item on the Borderlands as well. To a separate kind of, it's the Borderlands Natural Capital Programme, but also this is the Place Programme. I'm conscious that there has been a lot of seminars, etc., but probably where there's the lack of information since over the last 6 months with regards particularly to new members, then I think the council are looking to maybe do some seminars on Borderlands, which will be helpful in getting the perspective of some of the deals and some of the projects that's been worked on within the region.
Thank you. I don't know if, Lorna, you want to come in and comment on that one?
Yes, I think there are ward briefings where specific projects are discussed with members, but there needs to be a kind of more rounded briefing now that the diary is freed up from the initial induction programme, and Borderlands is a priority to give you that kind of rounded update, and we'll seek to put that in the diary as soon as possible.
Thank you, and we can note that for our action tracker that there's be an action that seminar will be arranged for as soon as possible, or when diaries will allow. So if members are happy, we will move on to the recommendations, and that is to 1, endorse the place plan before us, and to agree the recommendation that this place plan goes to the Borderlands Place Programme Board. Are members happy to endorse and agree? Thank you. Item 13, we're moving on, while still staying with the Borderlands, onto Countryside and the Environmental Team. And this report asks members to agree the key projects in the region, which will then be included in the business case proposals to be submitted for the Borderlands Natural Capital Programme as part of the Inclusive Growth Deal. We're also asked to agree to progress the development of a Solway Coast and Marine Seascape project as part of the Natural Capital projects, as detailed in section 4. And I have Simon Fieldhouse online and Karen Morley, who are here to assist members with any questions. So I shall open it up to the committee. Councillor Scobie.
Projects Sorry. Yeah, exciting projects in various shapes and form. Just, you know, perhaps a disappointment that I don't see or it's no recognised the opportunity in terms of our whole coastal line running from Annan, but it goes further than that. You know, it goes to Maryport, and how we can use the whole coastline from Maryport up to Annan, and my geography maybe isn't as good as what it should be. Annan to Kirkcudbright to the Isle to Dromore to Patrick to Stranraer. And this is, you know, as I understand it from people with yachts, they tend to go from Maryport across to the Irish coast and go up the Irish coast until they get to our Scotland, the Western Isles and so forth. And it's really just recognising the opportunity there is to sort of link them by way of pearls. And again, as I understand it, not that I'll ever aspire to be owning a yacht, but, you know, they like to hop and
I think we're losing you slightly there.
nautical miles are an ideal coastline just to provide that facility, and it's into the last point was that we've got opportunity report to try and attract yachts going up the Irish coast to rather come up the Scottish west coast from Maryport across and right top, just to recognise that and build it into a drop-off points and the whole way up from Annan and so forth.
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. I don't know if it's IT issues at our end or not, but you were cutting in and out slightly. But hopefully Simon and Karen have managed to pick up your comments there about yachting, etc. But I will pass over to Simon possibly to answer that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Through yourself. Yes, obviously sort of the opportunities that Councillor Scobie's referred to are ones obviously that we will keep a close eye on. They will probably closely align obviously with the marina development, which is also part of the Borderlands Natural Capital Programme moving forward. So we'll ensure obviously that we look at taking obviously cognizance of that moving forward. But obviously, just to sort of reiterate, these are obviously pilots, and we needed to choose areas that obviously sort of would reflect the level of investment that was available.
Thank you. Did you want to come back, Councillor Scobie?
No, just to thanks. I don't know what's happening. No, just to thank Simon that he will take cognizance, because there's others and around seagrass and so forth around the South Rins that do recognise. So no, thanks for that, Simon.
Thank you. And I think it is acknowledged in the report about extending our coastal core path as part of the Solway Coast and Marine Seascape. And certainly there's been significant work from Simon and his team and Karen on the Rins Galloway coastal path. So building on that good work, I think there's ample opportunities. Councillor Dryburgh, would you like to come in, please?
Chair, I was just going to say the same thing, although I would say take it for Gretna rather as Annan.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Slater looking to come in, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Dumfries is still known as the Port of Dumfries. A number of years ago, it was an extremely busy port. It was classed as the Scottish Liverpool. Now, small craft can still navigate up into the town, with the exception of the bridge at the park, Castle Dykes Park. But just about a couple of years back, maybe slightly more, there was a small craft came up, a motor its launch came up, and these people came all the way from Liverpool. So it's possible still to do that, although Dumfries has a short time scale and tides in that. Whether it be something worth looking to the future or not, because you've got to look to the future, whether it be possible again, because you could have like the Whitehaven working in Dumfries. It wouldn't be the Bermuda Triangle, but it would certainly be worthwhile. It would possibly bring people to the area as well. So it's just a thought that maybe for the future to be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Slater. I think this is the opportunity that the Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal could bring, and certainly if Perth can be a vibrant harbour city, which it is because it has got a harbour, there's no reason why Dumfries couldn't have that aspiration also. But I don't know if Simon, you want to comment on these points? We can't hear you, Simon. Your audio doesn't appear to be working.
Oh, sorry, Chair. Are you able to hear me now?
We can.
Lovely. Just to recognise the comments that are made, Chair, and obviously that we'll factor these in moving forward.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other members indicating to speak. So let's move to the recommendations, which are to agree to progress the development of the proposed Borderlands Inclusive Deal Natural Capital pilot projects, and to agree to progress the development work for the proposed Solway Coast and Marine Seascape project. Are members happy to agree both these? Thank you. Item 14, we move on to the Economic Development Capital Programme for 22-23, and this report asks members to consider the latest requests for financial assistance under the Community-Led Economic Regeneration Framework. I've got Melissa McGarry and Stuart McMillan who are here to assist members should you have any questions. So again, let me open it out to members. Councillor Dryber.
Here we are with another grant scheme here. I'm going to come back to what I said before. If the government should just give us the funding, we could probably find more smoother ways of taking things forward and some better ways of taking things forward, which wouldn't increase the workload of the staff that we have. But happy to agree with the recommendations. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else. Let me just double check. Oh no, Councillor Scobie, were you looking to come in, please?
Yeah, no, just a second. Councillor Dryber, and had the opportunity, or the chairs and vice chairs and senior leaders had the opportunity to visit the Stranraer Community Radio Shop and the exciting developments that they've got there, not only in terms of what they currently deliver, but what the potential could be. So happy to support the recommendations, Chair.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other members looking to come in, so we've had a proposal to move the recommendations as is. So that is to agree the grants in the papers in 2.1, 2, 3 and 4. So are all content to agree? Thank you. Item 15, we move on to the Economic Development Capital Programme for 22-23, and this is a monitoring report ending December 22. This report provides members with a quarterly monitoring report on the Economic Development Asset Class Capital Programme and associated funding programmes. Updates on programmes and projects progress is also provided. And again, we've still got Melissa and Stuart here to assist. So I will open up to members for debate. I'm not seeing anybody wanting to come in, and these reports are for noting. So if there's no specific questions, are members content to note? Thank you. Item 16, this is 1 to 3 George Street, Dumfries, and we are looking for this as surplus to requirements of the Economy and Resources Committee. We are provided with information on the background and the current position on the council property at 1 to 3 George Street, Dumfries, in order that we can determine whether the property can be declared as surplus. And I have Paul McCulloch online, who's here to assist members with any questions. I've got Councillor Ferguson and then Councillor Dryber, please, and then I'll bring in Councillor Slater.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, Paul. You'll probably remember that used to be my office many years ago. What I'm a wee bit worried about is because we've still got a play group upstairs. Their fire escape and their disabled access are all accessible from the ground floor. So can we be assured that we've actually taken that into account as we take this forward?
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Paul, are you able to come in on that point, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Ferguson. So the answer to that question is yes. So the occupies the upper floor of the building, and discussions are ongoing with the nursery at the moment in terms of the potential that the council would dispose of the property. The nursery currently don't have a lease in place, but we're looking to secure that, and they're also looking at whether or not they would be interested in the overall building.
Thank you. Do you want to come back at all, Councillor Ferguson, or does that answer your question?
That's actually a much better solution all round, Paul, I would suggest. And if that can be achieved, I think that'd be the best outcome. But yeah, I was just wanting that assurance that I was fairly certain Paul would have carried out that due diligence anyway. So I was just making sure, that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Dryburgh.
Thanks very much, Chair. My colleagues in the trade unions are, have been involved with this building doing the stairs, and I'm just hoping that alternative places have been sought and agreed with them at the moment.
Thank you, and certainly that's assurances that both myself and Vice Chair have received for our trade union partners that they will be accommodated. Councillor Slater.
Thank you, Chair. Will these buildings be sold in the open market for residency or whatever planning may come, or will they be actually demolished? Just my question. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're being asked to agree whether the property should be, if it is surplus, that it then follows through our disposal process. But I will bring in Paul just to confirm that for you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Slater. So in terms of our disposals policy, we declare surplus at the Service Committee. We then have a strategic asset board process to ensure there is no other use across the council, and then we follow the policy in terms of the disposal. What can occur, and has occurred on several occasions, is that community groups become interested as we go through that area committee process in terms of community asset transfer. So I can't sit here and say today that it will ultimately end up on the open market, but as we follow due process, that is the sort of final outcome.
Thank you. Did you want to come back, Councillor?
Yes, if it goes to community asset, is there such a thing, clawback situation if whoever took it over, it didn't maybe failed at one time, and would the council actually be able to claw that back, or the building back? So I think that's important for the community and the people and the capital it's worth. Thank you.
I think if I may, so we're not looking at community asset transfer. This is the disposal policy, and the background papers, which has a clear flow chart which went through the Finance and Procurement Committee, is in the papers. So you can actually see that clear flow chart. But Paul, did you want to comment further on anything?
Thanks, Chair. Just very quickly, in terms of that community asset transfer process, if the council dispose at less than best consideration, it is normal that we insert a clawback clause.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other members looking to come in. So if we look to the recommendations, are we happy to note 2.1, 2 and 3? And then are we happy in 2.4 to agree that the property at 1 to 3 George Street is surplus to requirement and it should progress through the disposal process as timorously as possible? Are we happy to agree? Okay, thank you. And then moving on to item 17, which is our Properties, Buildings and Asset Class Capital Programme Monitoring Report. And this report provides members with an updated information as of the 31st of December 22. And again, Paul is here to assist with any questions. So I will open it out to members' debate. The only comment I've got, I'm not seeing anybody looking to come in. Oh, Councillor Scobie, I'll let you come in just now. I was going to make reference to the miniature railway at Agnew Park in Stranraer, but invite you to come in, please.
I'll leave you with that one, Chair. I'm delighted to see, well, no delighted, but pleased to see that it is the small one gauge railway is going to be repaired, as I believe it does. But I'll let you speak on that one. It's really, I see in the Stuarty that we've got Stranraer and Stranraer Library, but it's really, I'm noting the timescales for those. My real concern is the Ryan Centre in Stranraer. And ward members were invited to go along and just see the extent of the problem that there is both in the wet and the dry facilities there. And they've been trying to put sticky plasters on it to try and get them through. Is this recommended to do a real haul on the heating plant, the plant that's there, so that it will have longevity in terms of the facility that's there in Stranraer?
Thank you, Councillor Scobie. Paul, are you able to come back on that, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Scobie. So the answer to that question is that this is a full mechanical and electrical refit. So we are conscious of the fact that all of the plant is at end of life. So it's a significant investment in the building to bring all of the mechanical and electrical systems up to date and to make them a lot more energy efficient.
Thank
Chair,
you.
if I could come back, yeah. If you mind, if I could come back just on that one, Paul, and maybe if you could advise the local members whether indeed that there'll be the possibility of close down to do this work, and how long that would be in terms of completing the works. If we could get ample notice and just how long this is going to be to try and minimise the time that if it has to be closed.
Thank you. Paul, are you able to provide that information?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Certainly happy to take that offline. We have been working closely with Lee Seaton and colleagues to obviously arrange that. So happy to take that offline and to make sure that all local members are fully advised.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson, I've got you indicating you wish to come in.
Yeah, thanks very much. Again, Paul, I'm looking at the page 358. I'm looking at the ice bowl in particular, 36,000 for plant and 70,000 for sound system. Are they the wrong way around, or I think the question about the plant is that to replace the existing plant, or is that to provide a supplementary plant, given the original plant was only designed for one ice pad, now there's two?
Paul, are you able to answer that, please?
Yes, Chair, thanks. So to answer the questions, the £70,000 was to replace the sound system, and that work is to replace the system that was at end of life. The £30,000 is actually for temporary plant to support the ice bowl activity that's underway both just now, and that I understand there'll be another event in a couple of weeks' time. There is, however, a further significant project within to replace all of that plant and to make the building more airtight of the energy challenges we have at the ice bowl. So we have a sort of a larger scale project to replace the plant that we know is at end of life there, but to also seal the building in order that the plant can work effectively. So these two smaller projects, one for the sound system and one for the temporary plant, are separate to the large project.
Thank you, Paul. Hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Ferguson.
I'm just wondering if there's a way we can actually make that. I totally take your point, Paul, about the temporary stuff. Maybe just need to highlight it's actually temporary, rather than I think people may get the wrong idea there. And I mean, I'd love to be able to get brand new plant for the building for 36k. That's fantastic. But there's a way we can actually make that a bit clearer that it's temporary.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. The line isn't great, and it's certainly, I think, whether it's, as I said previously, there's issues with the council Wi-Fi, but you were cutting in and out there, but hopefully those points have been captured, and certainly for future reports, I think it's maybe useful, as you say, to highlight where it's temporary plant and not permanent. Councillor Dennerley, I see you wish to come in, please.
Thank you, Chair. At 2.2 on page 347, it's an interesting part there, in regards to a new project. It's a full.
Apologies, we're really struggling to hear you right now. Apologies, I don't mean to interrupt, but the audio is atrocious in the hall here. I don't know if people online can hear. Paul, are you able to hear the question?
Chair, yes, Chair, I was able to hear the question.
Shall we maybe try again and see if the audio will work? We'll try one more time.
No problem at all, Chair. Hopefully you can hear this clearly. It's in regards to page 347, point 2.2, to agree a new project for a full refurbishment of, is it Agwin Park Railway? Now, as the interpreter, you'll need to excuse my pronunciation. Councillor Dennerley then goes on to explain, I didn't even know that that was there. So very interesting point. And I wonder what the priority is there. Is it still to continue with that refurbishment? And if so, the refurbishment, post-refurbishment, is that something that could be handed over to a third sector or to somewhere to maintain that preservation of that and almost not take any responsibility for the maintenance going forward is what I mean. What does it do for us as a council? What does it benefit? Is it to benefit the community, public? Again, it's new information to me, so I'm opening that up and hopefully I can get a response there. Sorry for the loaded question, Paul.
Thank you. No, we heard you much clearer, although there's something going on with the sound system in here, but we did hear your question, and certainly the miniature railway in Stranraer is well loved, and certainly an invitation for all councillors to come and enjoy it once it's been refurbed. You would all be very welcome. But Paul, I'll maybe pass over to you in response to the maintenance and upkeep of that.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think your point's well made. The small gauge railway in Stranraer is very much appreciated by locals and visitors to the town. So this refurbishment is about replacing track. It's also about replacing the current engine that is, I understand, uses fossil fuels to an electric vehicle. So a bit of the green credentials there. In terms of ongoing future maintenance, of course, you know, there is the opportunity for that facility, and indeed any facility, to go over into community ownership. But obviously, we need groups to come forward that are prepared to do that.
Thank you. Hopefully that answers your point, Councillor Dennerley. I've got Councillor Slater, then Thompson, then Dorward looking to come in, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask the cost of £70,000 for the PA system. That appears to be rather high. Maybe you could give us a more in-depth explanation about that. Thank you.
Paul, are you able to provide that detail?
Yeah. So the sound system that operates within the Ice Bowl, obviously, it's throughout the building. It's a very large building, and so it's not himself, the speakers, the amplification. So yes, you're absolutely right. It is a considerable amount of money. However, it's a pretty extensive sound system that we had to replace. The whole thing was at end of life and needed replacement.
Thank you, Paul. I think if there's individual comments on individual points, they can maybe be followed up offline. But Councillor Thompson, you were indicating to come in next, please.
Yeah, I was going to make an individual comment about an individual thing. It was just actually, well I've got in, it's just on page 350. It talks about a project for toilet block demolition and then the change of places toilet at Lochside Caravan Park. Councillor Douglas, my interest in this is really because this is part of two common good assets that are run by the same team, if you like, and it was really just to get that assurance that the common good subcommittee in Castle Douglas would get fully apprised of this, because it's actually work that's taking place on a common good asset, as far as I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, are you able to offer that reassurance that the Common Good Subcommittee is well informed?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yes, I can confirm that members of the Castle Douglas Common Good Subcommittee are fully appraised of the work that's underway at Castle Douglas.
Thank you. Councillor Dorward.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Paul, for the report, and thank you to the Property and Estates team for the upkeep of this significant list of assets that we have. I'd like to focus on page 353, point 36 and point 37, the risks that you've outlined in your report, Paul, and something that I find quite interesting or astounding, maybe. There's a vast amount of work available here, and an opportunity for the council to spend locally. And a couple of the risks I want to focus on are contractor availability and delays to programmes, insufficient tender returns, a number of lack of responses that I note in the list that you've given. And I'm just wondering, I know the council are doing work to encourage local contractors and local businesses to come forward and take up these programmes. I'm thinking of cost of living crisis, there is work available, and could you maybe expand a little bit, Paul, not too much detail obviously, in terms of what are the barriers here in terms of contractor availability and sufficient tender returns? Is it size, capacity or opportunity? What is it? Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, are you able to come in, please?
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Dorward. So I think it's a combination of those, and I would include geography within that list. So what we have found recently is that we are struggling to receive adequate tender returns for work, particularly down in the west of the region. So we've had a particular project in Stranraer. We've had to tender 3 times recently just to get a positive response. Now, as we know, we're developing our supply chain. There's been a lot of work done with procurement colleagues in terms of meet the buyer events, and we also discussed this recently at the capital. So what we're looking to do is some form of, I suppose, advertisement out to the sort of wider contractor base, not just for construction in terms of buildings, but also construction in terms of roads, bridges, etc. So we're doing a piece of work currently to try and, I suppose, advertise that the council is open for business, that we do have significant capital investment to make every year, and we're really trying to grow that contractor base. And obviously keep as much of it local. Sorry, just one final thing, and we're looking to try and keep as much of that work local as we can.
Thank you, Paul, and certainly there's been a lot of work done in meet buyer events and such like across the region. Did you want to come back at all, or is that okay, Councillor?
Just thanks, Paul, for the excellent response. That's reassuring. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've got Councillor Ian Carruthers, and then Councillor Thompson has indicated that he wishes to come back in.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies if this has been covered, but just to thank Paul for bringing forward the Anna Library and the demolition of that. Fully support that case going forward. It's been a blight in Annan / Charles Street in that particular area for quite a while now, just with the level of, I suppose, antisocial behaviour in particular. Fires being lit and all the rest of it. It will allow the community asset transfer to progress at a fair old pace as well. So just to thank for that coming forward. Apologies going back to your previous statement, Chair, but I felt that needed to be said, and apologies if it's been covered already.
No, thank you, Councillor. I think it's important for us to put our thanks on record as well to the teams who are working really hard on the ground. Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And it's actually on the back of Councillor Dorward's point about the risk, and especially at 3.7. I'd sort of almost forgotten, but I'd been appointed by, I think, this committee in terms of the supplier development programme, which I've now found out a bit more information about, and I gather there's a meeting upcoming shortly, but that's specifically to try and champion and encourage the development of, in our area, mini and micro businesses to actually get involved with the procurement process. And I know the Meet the Buyer events are another way of doing that through the procurement team. So hopefully that can be championed, because clearly there's a lot of asset and resource in terms of the small businesses in our region, which if we can marry those up with the opportunities that we're providing through our capital programme, then that, you know, is going to benefit the local economy hugely. So it's just to say I'll try and take that forward as well as through the membership of that supplier development programme.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm not seeing anybody else looking to come in. Oh, excuse me, Councillor Ingalls.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, if I can just feed back a wee bit about the lack of interest from local companies in council work. And I've had this conversation with Paul, you know, a number of months ago. Small businesses, especially out in the West, had a conversation yesterday actually with one of the larger employers, and the amount of paperwork that's involved through Public Contract Scotland and Quick Quotes system discourages small businesses from taking part. And that's one of the real problems with this setup. Local companies, especially 2, 3, 4, 5-man bands, are just not interested in engaging in the amount of paperwork and the amount of hurdles they've got to cross, the CHAS membership or whatever it may be that they've got to go through to get onto contractors' lists to tender for work. It's off-putting. That's what's causing the problem. They're just not interested in engaging. There's plenty of work out there at the minute. You know, they don't need to be taking that type of work on. It might be different if there was a lack of work, but there's so much work on the go at the present moment in time, especially in the construction industry, that a lot of the small businesses are just not interested. As I say, I've been through this myself. The amount of paperwork that's involved for a small business, anybody employing maybe 20 men upwards that can run an office and has somebody specifically engaged in trawling through Public Contract Scotland websites, you know, they might be able to do it. But under that, and there's not many in Dumfries and Galloway that are employing, you know, between the 2-man band and the 15 or 20 man bands, if you want to call them that, there's not many of them, and they're just not interested in taking part in it, I'm afraid. It's really difficult to get them to engage, unfortunately.
Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. I mean, in terms of his response, I will invite Paul back, but just to confirm that there's been a lot of work being done on procurement that sits within FPT. Clearly, there's a lot of national frameworks that we're working within, but certainly in terms of procurement for small businesses, etc., that is an ongoing piece of work that's sitting with FPT. But Paul, did you want to come back? I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Ingalls. So the point's very well made. We have had these conversations. We have met these contractors, and Councillor Ingalls is right. Some of these smaller ones find the process restrictive. So in terms of work ongoing with procurement colleagues, it's about supporting those smaller businesses. It's about supporting them to complete paperwork in order that they can, in fact, participate in our tendering processes. What I would say is that we have had some successes recently. So we now have more small and medium-sized enterprises on our contractor base that have joined, joined up in terms of that process. So it is a challenge, but work is ongoing with procurement groups to try and address those challenges and support spend as local as we can.
Thank you. Councillor Ingalls, were you wanting to come back in?
Yeah, you know, I fully support that, Paul, and I know that it's difficult, you know, and we're doing what we can to try and encourage small businesses to take part. But I think the constraints that we find ourselves having to work under are very prohibitive for small businesses. And it's how we get round those constraints as a council, where you can reach out to a joiner who's got 2 or 3 guys working for him, or a builder or decorator, whatever it may be, an electrician, you know, and encourage them to take work that we're offering as a council. You almost feel that that framework that we're working on is prohibitive, and we need to come out of that, you know. And I know there's the quick quote system through Public Contracts Scotland, and I've had a dozen in the last 3 or 4 months that I just looked at and decided I wasn't going to get involved in them, because it just simply is too onerous for me to do that, unfortunately. So hopefully, Paul, the work that you're doing will enable us to get round those, you know, because I've had companies in Dumfries contact me, companies in Stranraer contact me about this, you know, and they're seeing companies coming down from Central Belt to carry out work on their doorstep. It's just a bit disheartening to me, and be able to use local contractors. I've always said that the term contract system that we operated a number of years ago was a really good system. I thought that was probably the best system I've worked through the council, and I was really disappointed that disappeared. Thanks anyway, Paul.
Thank you, Councillor Ingalls. And as I say, I think a lot of these pertinent questions would be sitting with an FPT for you to raise within that forum, but absolutely welcome any and all contributions today. I'm not seeing anybody else looking to come in, so if members are content, let's move to the final set of recommendations. I just want to double check, Councillor Carruthers, your hand is still up. Is that a legacy hand, or were you looking to come in?
Legacy, Chair, apologies.
No, I just wanted to check. So if members are happy, we can move to the recommendations, which are to note 2.1 and agree 2.2. Thank you. So I have not been notified of any other urgent business, and I'd like to thank members for all their contributions today, and officers for their time too, and wish you all a safe journey home. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.